Regina and I are out here at Oakland Cemetery at the foot of the Black Angel to talk about some of the history and notable graves at the City of Iowa City's Oakland Cemetery.
I grew up in Iowa City, and Oakland Cemetery is probably one of my favorite places in the community. It's a great place for walks. The solitude here is wonderful. I even have a running path through the cemetery on the designated roads, of course. And I've learned quite a bit about the cemetery in my time here.
Well, it's actually been really interesting researching Oakland Cemetery. A lot of people know about the Black Angel, of course, but there's some very notable people to the state of Iowa and to Iowa City who are buried here.
Let's share some of what we've learned with the viewers. I think they'd find it interesting. This is the grave of Robert Lucas, Governor of Ohio and first territorial governor of Iowa. Robert Lucas was the 12th governor of the U.S. state of Ohio, serving from 1832 to 1836. He served as the first governor of Iowa Territory from 1838 to 1841.
In fact, most of the Lucas family from this era is buried here at Oakland Cemetery. Lucas came from a Quaker family whose roots stretch back to 1679 in Pennsylvania. His father, a Revolutionary War veteran, owned slaves and large amounts of land. According to family legend, Robert's uncle, Joseph Barnes, built a steam-powered boat long before Fulton's invention.
Lucas served in the War of 1812 and was famous for his resourcefulness and calm in an increasingly chaotic campaign. As one of his contemporaries stated, as a spy he was productive and brave, as a soldier he had no superior. Lucas's political career blossomed when in 1818 he was named Speaker of the Ohio Senate. 20 years later, in 1838, Iowa became a territory and Lucas its first governor. His retirement house in Iowa City, Plum Grove, is maintained by the state as a monument to Lucas. This is the grave of Samuel J. Kirkwood, Civil War governor of Iowa and U.S. Senator.
Born in 1813 in Maryland, Samuel Kirkwood became a teacher at the age of 17. One of his pupils, his cousin Daniel Kirkwood, later achieved prominence as a mathematician and astronomer.
His family moved to the Ohio Territory, where Samuel Kirkwood became a well-known anti-slavery Republican. He was elected to several state offices and worked closely with Thomas Bartley, the future governor of Ohio, in the 1840s.
In 1855, Kirkwood moved to Iowa, living northwest of Iowa City, and became involved with the Clark family, also from Ohio, in a milling venture in Coralville.
In coming to Iowa City, Kirkwood actually became the brother-in-law of Edward Lucas, son of Robert Lucas, whom we just discussed. Although Kirkwood intended to leave politics behind him in Ohio, he took an interest in the newly founded Republican Party, giving a famous, rousing speech at the founding meeting of the Iowa Republican Party in February 1856. That year, he was elected to the Iowa Senate, serving from 1856 to 1859.
His anti-slavery commitment was really the backbone to Kirkwood's political career. He was a strong supporter of President Abraham Lincoln's policies during the Civil War and was active in raising and equipping dozens of regiments of infantry, as well as cavalry and artillery for the Union Army. In 1862, he attended the Loyal War Governors Conference in Altoona, Pennsylvania, which ultimately gave Lincoln support for his Emancipation Proclamation.
After he left office in 1864, Kirkwood moved to a new brick house on Wyoming Road in Iowa City, which is now Kirkwood Avenue, and practiced law, though he did serve in the Senate again from 1877 to 1881. And between his separate terms as senator, he was again the governor of Iowa from 1876 to 1877.
He really did have an extensive political career. In 1881, Kirkwood resigned his Senate seat to become Secretary of the Interior under President James Garfield. He served as Interior Secretary until 1882. He unsuccessfully ran for Congress in 1886 and died only 8 years into his retirement here in Iowa City.
We don't have time to look closely at all the notable graves, but we thought we'd take the time to show you a few more interesting Iowans buried here at Oakland Cemetery.
Now this is the grave of Eleanor Hoyt Brainerd, a popular novelist who was born at Plum Grove Historic House, the historic home of Robert Lucas in Iowa City. Her parents, Walter Hoyt and Louisa Smith, were active in the abolitionist movement. Eleanor's 1919 novel, Our Little Old Lady, is a biography of her parents.
Eleanor began her professional career in New York City as a writer and editor for the New York Sun, specializing in fashion writing. Her novel In Vanity Fair drew heavily from her coverage of fashion in Paris and New York. She published extensively in magazines including Collier's, The Girl's Own Paper, Ladies' Home Journal, The Saturday Evening Post, and Everybody's Magazine, typically in a serial format.
Some of Eleanor Hoyt Brainerd's books are available right here at the Iowa City Public Library. Her fictional novels often follow the same formula as the Pollyanna or Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm series, in which a young girl, often an orphan, tries to improve the lives of adults through pluck and daring.
3 of Eleanor Hoyt Brainerd's novels were made into silent films: Pegeen, How Could You, Jean, and For the Love of Mary Ellen. She was really quite a prolific artist, and as a woman managed to break the glass ceiling in both Hollywood and the field of journalism.
Though her professional and artistic endeavors kept her living in New York and other major U.S. cities, Iowa City was her home, and where she and her husband chose to be buried.
Irving Weber, beloved Iowa City historian, is buried here in Rose Hill at Oakland Cemetery. Irving Weber was a local athlete, businessman, and historian. He was the first athlete at the University of Iowa to make the All-American swimming team.
His grave really reflects his career. He joined Sidwell's Ice Cream Company in Iowa City and later became one of its owners. He later organized the firm and 4 other independent producers of ice cream into the Quality Checked Dairy Association. You can see the logo right there on his gravestone, which is unusual, but is something that Irving Weber would have been very proud of.
Beginning in the 1970s, his weekly Saturday newspaper articles in the Iowa City Press-Citizen under the title Irving Weber's Iowa City were what led to his greatest renown in the community as a local character. His articles regularly informed readers about Iowa City history with a healthy interest in both lost and still existing historical structures.
All of his articles were eventually collected into various bound paperback volumes that were sold to benefit the local Iowa City Lions Club and are available at the Iowa City Public Library and in the local section of Prairie Lights Bookstore.
This isn't the only memorial to Irving in Iowa City. Irving B. Weber Elementary School, which opened its doors in 1994, is named for him, and there is also a statue of him in downtown Iowa City that greets traffic and pedestrians at the corner of Iowa Avenue and Lynn Street.
So if people want to learn more about Oakland Cemetery, they can always give a call to the staff at the Oakland Cemetery office and get more information about the cemetery.
You might have a distant relative, a grandparent buried here in the cemetery. Staff can help you locate their graves, and they can also fill you in on the rules and regulations of the cemetery.
And if you want to go to an online source, you can always go to icgov.org. The Parks and Recreation page has a full listing for Oakland Cemetery. Before we go, we want to point our viewers towards a few more fun things to do this fall. A great resource for City of Iowa City parks and recreation activities is available at the city website, www.icgov.org. The fall guide is now posted with all the new indoor and outdoor city-sponsored activities. Be sure to check that out.
Fall is also a great time to check out some of the great events taking place at the Iowa City Public Library. From language conversation groups to family storytime hours, there is something happening every day and for every age group at the Iowa City Public Library. You might want to consider taking your Monday lunch break at noon in order to catch the ongoing International Mondays program, where each week there is a forum for individuals with varied international experiences. Iowa City is truly an international city, as you'll see from this event.
I've actually been to those, and they're pretty interesting. And finally, October is, of course, the month of my favorite holiday, Halloween. This year, Halloween falls conveniently on a Friday, and the City of Iowa City Halloween Parade will be happening downtown on October 31st. Be sure to check that out. It's a really fun event.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.